Ready. Go for it.
Okay, go for it. Wow, that's very exciting. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order here. I've indicated that we have a quorum, and I have to read my statement once again, not my statement, but the official statement here. And that is, this meeting is being convened by video conference in compliance with Governor Cuomo's orders, which suspend certain provisions of the open meetings law to allow municipal boards to convene meetings via video conferencing without in-person attendance by the public. In addition, the public provided with the ability to view, hear, and participate in the meeting. A transcript will be provided at a later date. There is a quorum of board members for the meeting. The link to the live stream of the meeting has been provided to the public, and a video of the meeting will be made available on public access television, as well as a link on the town's website. All submission materials and agendas are available to be viewed on the town's website. So with that, we'll go to our first item. And our first item is a public hearing for NICIC. Sabrina, is this our initial or is this a carryover? Did we adjourn the last public meeting to this, or is it we starting one now?
This is a continued public hearing.
Okay, so we don't need a motion on that. So this is a continued public hearing on NICIC, 8 Cynthia Court. This is an application for a site development plan and final subdivision plat approval, Brandywine subdivision, lot number 6. We last heard it November 4. So last time we were here talking about this, I think the board was pretty satisfied with what we had seen from the applicant, some of the changes, elimination of the pool. I think we were pretty much set to move forward. We had a little bit of a wrinkle, and perhaps Jennifer, if you can bring us up to speed in terms of what's been resolved on the legal angle here.
Sure. So at the last planning board meeting that this applicant was before you on, I raised the issue that the performance bond on the overall subdivision has expired. There are a few remaining overall infrastructure items that remain. So we had put out a notice to the property owners within the subdivision that this needs to be resolved. We've had conversations with Mr. Nikic's attorney, Mr. Pancotti, and our office is satisfied that this will be resolved in a way that you can proceed with your land use approvals tonight without holding it up any further. So you have the all clear from the legal side. This particular applicant still has 2 lots that they're going to be seeking COs on. So it was agreed that we'll have resolution to this issue before COs are issued on the last lot.
Okay. And I think that we also understood that this applicant had lot number 6 basically sold, and they're ready to close. And what's holding it up, of course, is the CO, and that was really this application that we had. So are there comments or questions from any members of the board on this application? Excuse me. Or anything that the applicant wants to add or state for the record?
No, I don't believe so. I think we've addressed everything. We're very appreciative for everybody working with us on this matter, getting the CO. That's all I have to say. And I know the applicant himself is very, very appreciative as well.
Okay. Pamela, do we have anyone online who might want to, members of the public who might have a question or a comment?
I don't see any hands raised by the attendees at this time.
Okay. Well, we just give it a couple extra seconds in case someone's trying to storm through to get this or the comment in on this application. Okay, but and no comments from board members at this point. So if not, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Do we need? I guess we'll do a roll call on this. Dick.
Yes.
Eldad.
Yes.
Tom.
Aye.
And Kenan. I'll get it someday. Don't worry.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Sorry. So the motion's carried. I'm yes. Also, that's 5-zip. Why don't we go straight now instead of intervening with Chappaqua Crossing, can we go straight now to the resolution for this application, which has been prepared in anticipation of this closing of the public hearing?
And I
So-
just want to clarify for the board, earlier today, or I think it was earlier today, council had sent you a version of the resolution. I proceeded to clean up that version of the resolution and sent you a clean version probably around 4:45 today, 4:30 today.
Okay, I don't think I saw it, but maybe others did. So it was just nothing substantive, just really
Nothing substantive.
Typos.
grammatical and typos. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
did
that. Thank you, Sabrina.
I got it also, and it looked fine to me.
Great. The only question I had was, are we all satisfied? Do we know what the revised clearing and grading limit lines are? Bob, do you have those in a form that you're satisfied with now that you can delete from the application?
Yes, I went over that with the applicant's engineer, and it's everything as the planning board wished for, and they do have a separate map for that, which will be incorporated into the declaration as well.
Great. Okay. All right. Any other questions, anyone? If not, is there a motion to move forward to adopt the resolution and approve the application?
Before, just a point of clarification for our newest member who may not be up to speed on these items. If she feels uncomfortable, then I think she could abstain or not vote. Is that okay?
Yep.
I definitely feel, as far as Chappaqua Crossing was concerned, I haven't been able to dig.
But this
enough.
is initiative.
Yes, no, I know. But yes, so I did read through this one, but I'm happy to hold off on this,
Okay.
on the word study.
Whatever you feel comfortable with. I know Jennifer spoke with you or sent you a note on this, so
Mhm.
whatever you feel comfortable with.
Okay.
That should not, prevent you from participating in the over-under that we have here every night, which is guessing how many times I'm corrected by council during the course of an evening. So be sure to take your number and
Take the over.
take the over. Exactly. All right. With that, is there a motion then to move forward to adopt the resolution?
Motion.
Second?
Second,
Okay, Tom,
yes,
Dick,
Yes.
Eldad,
Yes.
and Kenan, will you abstain or vote yes or?
I will abstain for this.
Okay, one abstention, and I'm yes, so it's 4-0, one abstention, and the motion's carried and the resolution is set and the application is approved. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for
we're done with it.
everything. Everybody, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Have a nice night. Okay, we move now to our next item, and this is the opening of a public hearing on the Chappaqua Crossing East Village MFPD. This is an application for a subdivision approval, site development plan approval, planning board application for a wetlands permit, steep slopes permit, tree permit, and stormwater pollution prevention plan at 480 Bedford Road. So is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
second,
We can do this all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, very good. So we're off and running. Last time we met, we had talked about a number of issues, but I think what we were really looking forward to was opening the public hearing and then looking toward getting material in from the applicant, having that material reviewed. I understand that we received some things from the applicant on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Thank you. But I don't think, as far as I understand, we have had sufficient time to review that. But Andy, if there's something that you want to raise or any kind of issues that you want to just bring us up to speed on, if anything's happened since we last met 2 weeks ago, please feel free. Same Mark, James, whoever wishes to speak and advise us of any developments.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Andrew Tung, on behalf
Can't
of
hear you. No.
Now you're muted.
There you are. There you are.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Andrew Tung from Divney Tung Schwalbe on behalf of the Chappaqua Crossing team. We have two updates for you this evening before we get to the East Village. One relates to the master subdivision. Our resubmission to the Department of Health went in yesterday with all requested revisions and changes and updates. And we are standing ready with them to receive their any final comments and hopefully their signed plan. When that is, as soon as that's received, we will return it to the planning board along with the other documents that are required so that you can go ahead and review it and sign it. So that happened just yesterday, as I mentioned. Secondly, on the retail checklist of things awaiting to be completed for the certificate of occupancies. We're proceeding on those. We had a related question from Mr. Brownell last meeting related to the Roaring Brook Road and 117 improvements, specifically the northwest corner where that improvement was made and the crosswalk there. So we consulted with Major Consulting, who did the design, oversaw the construction there, took some photographs, and Matt Steinberg is going to describe our observations and findings for you. Matt?
Thank you, Andy. Matt Steinberg with Divney Tung Schwalbe. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So as Andy mentioned, the question that came up had to do with the left turn from Route 117 onto Roaring Brook Road. So this is a diagram of the of the conditions in the field as of today. This is the finished conditions of the intersection. So the left turn movement is shown here in this with the blue arrow. The existing conditions on Roaring Brook Road. So there's approximately an 18.5-foot receiving lane for vehicles turning onto Roaring Brook Road, which is quite wide for a single lane road. Then there is a 10 to 11 foot space between the edge of pavement and the stone dust walkway that was installed as approved by the planning board. Then there's the crosswalk across Route 117. So there was the concern about turning traffic and the potential for traffic to leave the travel way. So when there's in consultation with Mazer, who designed the intersection, when there's a no curb condition, the sidewalk or the walkway has to be over 5 feet off of the travel way, which it is. In this case, it was designed to be further away. And there is I'll go to some photos in a moment, but what was designed is, you'll see it in the photographs, there is a stone filter strip for drainage along the side of the roadway that runs and extends over 100 feet down Roaring Brook Road. This is it's traversable. A car could travel on it, but it essentially acts as a travelable shoulder that is both a visual and a tactile separation between the travelway and that walkway, in addition to the separation and the distance. So we went and took a look at the conditions of turning traffic just to observe how cars make that turn, because it was a concern whether or not a car could track further on into somebody walking along. So this is showing a car making that turn from that turn lane, and then as it tracks down Roaring Brook Road. And in all the conditions that we observed, all cars made it either set in the center of Roaring Brook Road or actually over to the left. No vehicles actually tracked far over, and had any car tracked a little further, or had been, if a driver wasn't paying attention, they would actually cross onto this stone interface between the grass strip and the travelway, and that would obviously catch their attention, much like a rumble strip would.
Yeah,
probably
excuse
more.
me. My problem wasn't there. It was only down at the corner. I agree with this totally. That there's not a problem along the drainage thing.
Mm-hmm. So we looked at cars turning. Yeah. So you're talking, Mr. Brownell, about this location, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, even if there was a curb condition, this would still be, because of ADA, would be down with a ramp. So in this area, it would obviously be lower and closer to the road.
But again, that's not where I'm worried. I'm worried to the right of where that white car is. If the guy comes in half drunk or something and doesn't make the turn right, the first part that you described, there's a lot of visibility, for people walking down, and they have plenty of time to move. At this corner, if they just don't make the turn because they are distracted totally by, texting or whatever, I think it's missing like one bollard to really make it more protective. Right now with the pedestrian post that was put in, that acts like a bollard, so that helps me partially, but I certainly think another bollard would be better.
So
can I just interrupt here for a second? Because we talked about this, I thought, sufficiently to get the point across at our last meeting. For some reason, the communication didn't get down to a solution. So we're talking about a problem. Now we're talking about a solution, or it sounds to me like an excuse to accept what is there, but doesn't really deal with the problem. The problem, what I think Dick rightfully points out is a concern, is that, and it's not just somebody driving around this corner and using examples of going out and watching people do it. It's a matter of, in the snow and in the rain and icy conditions, and Dick's other example, people maybe just not paying attention. Somebody slipping sideways through that intersection, because people do tend to drive fairly quickly down this road and making that turn, trying to beat the light. We talked about this last time. I don't understand why.
Right. So we went to look at the condition because we understood that there was a concern of turning cars. So we went to look at the condition because this one has a sufficiently wide turning area compared to many roads where there'd be two lanes, fit into that same location in many places. Because of the speeds, because of the speed and the design of the road, DOT does not allow obstructions in the right of way. Based on the speed of this road, an obstruction would have to be 14 to 16 feet back. These poles and even the signs that you see along the roadway, those have breakaway bolts. If a vehicle hits that, it will break away. They are designed not to be obstructions. So DOT will not allow an obstruction that cannot break away, like a bollard, in that location.
So okay, so now we're getting to the point. So you're suggesting that, or you're telling us that what we may consider to be an unsafe condition, we really can't do what we think is a solution to it because DOT won't allow it. Is that correct?
Correct. So, but we also wanted to, to look at the conditions and try to understand whether or not, if there was anything unique about this site compared to other intersections. And
but what might be unique to this site is that this particular intersection is that there's no curb, right?
But there's often, if this was a location that had a crosswalk across this way, this would be a curb that had a ramp in a crescent shape. So there are often instances where the entire corner is one big ramp that a car could run up on, and that is, it happens.
I know, but
It
yeah,
does happen.
This conversation is very frustrating to me because let me ask you, is there a crosswalk that goes across Roaring Brook Road on this corner? Yes
There
or
is
no?
not at this, no, at this
Okay,
corner,
so,
there's not.
so this would not be a condition. Let's just be straight, right? This is not a condition where you would have a handicap ramp that would go all the way around the corner to join with the crosswalk going across Roaring Brook Road. So that the example you give is not really a fair one.
Correct. This is also an 18-foot lane to turn into, where in many places it might be 11. If you were other lanes getting onto Route 117, the lanes are less than that.
I gotta, it doesn't matter whether it's 18 feet or whether it's 20 feet or it's 15 feet. Once a car starts to slide on ice, it's gonna go until it decides to stop. And so you're not really, I don't think we're really addressing what the concern is. If the answer is we can't solve the problem, even though we would like to, then that's the answer. But trying to talk around the problem, I don't think is going to get us anywhere. We can move on if you're telling us we can't do anything about it.
Well, I have a question on that, and for Matt and probably Bob Scioli. Where does the DOT jurisdiction end on this? Because Reader's Digest Road, as I understand it, is a local road. That's a town road. So where does that jurisdiction end on 117 for the DOT? How far along the roadbed of Roaring Brook Road does it end at the corner? And is that a possibility whereby it's outside of the right of way of 117 and it's in the right of way of Reader's Digest Road? And perhaps it is within the jurisdiction of the town to say, okay, we may not be able to get as many bollards as we like or exactly where we want them, but perhaps we can come up with a solution that's within our jurisdiction.
So,
Robert, usually in conversation with the state, when we're working with the Chappaqua Hamlet improvements, they usually have so much jurisdiction, so many feet in from the intersection point. I don't know what exactly that number may be in this particular case, but I think it may be worth the effort to get some sort of answer from the DOT about the planning board's concern about that corner and let them know what the concerns are and let them write back to say yay or nay. So at least we have it on record so we know where it's coming from.
We'd be happy to review that request.
Excuse me?
We'd be happy to review that request.
Yeah, I think the applicant, to the board's concerns, the applicant should prepare some sort of letter to the DOT and have DOT respond back to the town or the applicant. So at least we have it on record that they have good reasons for why it can't be put there. I mean, they're the experts and they looked at this thing during design. So let them come up with the answer to it. That's my recommendation.
So respectfully, this is Dave Walsh speaking from Summit. It took us roughly 2.5 to 3 years to get the town's approval and the DOT's approval on what was ultimately constructed out there over the last couple of years. I don't know if we can apply for that. We've had issues like this pop up before, and the DOT has asked, for the town to apply. I mean, we've constructed what was approved out there on an approved plan, and this is the result of that. Now, I understand that there are safety concerns, and I think they're important. But I don't know what action we will get as a private developer out of the DOT requesting this. I think something like this has to come from the town. Somebody feels differently. My experience with the DOT is they don't want to listen to me.
I can approach Ann Dorelius. I deal with her all the time. She's the permit engineer. If you like it, if the board wants me to do that, I have no problem, reaching out to her via email.
And I think
Mr. Chairman, it's Mark Weingarten. It's hard with this up on the screen.
Yes.
Matt, do we actually know where the New York State DOT right-of-way is on this drawing? I believe we have that information, correct?
Right. So, it's not on this diagram, but the DOT took a strip here that goes out and around this pole because this signal pole is theirs. Mm-hmm. So it goes out here. Now, the good question is, this end of Roaring Brook Road may still be in the town jurisdiction as far as the right of way, but Bob is correct. We would have to
Right.
find
So-
out how far back their control goes.
So we would have to look at that. And I just want to suggest that, and I understand fully Member Curley's comment, and we appreciate it. If you think that we wouldn't want to put a bollard there to prevent the approval of the East Village, you know us better than that. That's not the objection. The objection is we believe it's in the right of way, and we've been told by our traffic experts that it is something that we can't do because it violates the DOT policy. It's not a question, and what Matt was trying to show was that while that may be the case, we still think it's a safe condition. We understand there may be that concern of the board, and we are not suggesting it's not an accurate concern. We can go plot out the right of way on the on this map and show it to you. But if our traffic people are correct that it is New York State DOT right of way where you want to place this safety mechanism, and there is a policy of the DOT to not permit it, we would ask that we don't have to go down the road of waiting 6 months to get rejected, because that's what they're going to do. So it's not a question of not wanting to cooperate with you. It's a question of what we have the ability to do.
So Mark, let me respond to that if I can. I'm having trouble with that because where we just left it about 5 minutes ago or 3 minutes ago was that DOT was not going to allow it. Right. Then Bob, our chairman, brought up, well, where are the right-of-way lines connecting on this drawing with respect to town-owned right-of-way and DOT right-of-way, state right-of-way? And we get the answer, well, we don't know. So
Actually,
I'm sorry. Let me just finish.
That's not what but please let me say what I said, because we don't have the traffic person on the Zoom with us. My understanding is this was submitted to our traffic consultant, Mazer. They looked at it, and this was their response to us. My assumption is, but I can't testify to you at a board hearing, that right-of-way prevents it, because that's what we were told. We now have to go back and plot it because I believe that they did. I just don't have someone on with you tonight to verify that, so I would never tell you that it's a fact unless I knew it was a fact. But that's what our understanding is. So that may be the disconnect.
Okay, so Mazer, so you submitted this to Mazer, and the assumption is that you have to confirm before you assert it that they looked at it and they had determined that what we wanted was in the DOT right away. The problem is that there's no indication anywhere on any drawing of what we wanted. I mean, so how would they know whether what we had proposed was it within the DOT right of way or not? I mean, they can't. I don't know how anybody would affirm that something is either within or without a right of way if they don't actually have a drawing that tells them where the intention is to put it. So it's just, we can.
Let
me interrupt for a minute, please. I have a question. If we put a bollard in, that would be great if we could do it if the lines were right. But if we had a breakaway bollard, which wouldn't be permanent, that would slow a vehicle down. And that gives a chance for anybody on the walkway to jump aside. So,
Dave or Felix, do we have an objection to a breakaway bollard, provided we can get the approval?
Can you guys hear me from Kansas?
Yes.
You know, all of us out here in the Midwest are always the easy to get along folks. Anyway, I think the issue is if the board wants a bollard and the DOT would allow us to put a bollard, we'll pay for a bollard. The issue for us is the pain and suffering associated with trying to get the DOT to respond. So Tom, we can figure out if it's in the right of way or not in the right of way. I don't think we know the answer, but we can get the answer. And if you want us as a condition of the approval of the East Village to make a request to the DOT that a bollard be installed, we'll gladly pay for it. We'd like that request to come from the town, because our experience lately has been we don't get anywhere. We're hoping that you have a little bit more leverage. So if you make it a condition of the approval to make a request to install a bollard, breakaway, non-breakaway, whatever you like is fine with us. So we're not quarreling with that. But we would like your assistance with the request. We have a similar issue that we've been starting to talk to Jill and Ivy about with the stone dust path. The DOT it's difficult over there.
So
I have a quick question. What is the rumble, the stone, how wide is that right now?
So in this instance where it runs along Roaring Brook Road, it's 2 feet
right
in width. So in this area, it ranges from 10 feet to, down to the corner. Yeah.
And there's also a gradient going down, right? So, I mean, if we're talking about a left turn, there's a gradient going, yeah. So as far as I remember, yeah. So, yeah, if you really look at how the vehicle would turn, you do have some room there. I mean, I don't know enough about the bollard and no bollard instance, but I do think you have the 2 feet would significantly slow it down the way I have seen that. I mean, I've done a walk around there. Where would you put the bollard if you were to put it in? I'm curious.
I think the bollard would most appropriately go to the left of the signal pole. And if you can go back to the plan.
Yeah. So this is the pole right here.
To be able to protect somebody standing right waiting to cross.
Yep.
Unfortunately, and we can ask the DOT that, unfortunately, they do control the land on the signal pole that the signal pole sits on. So I believe they control the land between that and roadway paving.
And so our concern is somebody walking on the path will not have a chance to react, correct?
If they happen to be on the wrong side of the signal pole. The signal pole, as Mr. Kirkwood points out, I think acts as protection.
So can I?
And just recently, I'd like to add that the DOT on their approved punch list to us had us relocate that signal pole to its current condition, which is more in the pathway than it was before. In fact, the concrete base for that signal pole, because of field conditions when it was originally installed, was much larger and would have probably given you the protection that you're asking for. But they had us actually demolish it and move the signal pole into the walkway because they thought that signal pole base was too big, and they didn't like where the signal pole had ultimately ended up because of the stormwater and everything else that we had to deal with out there.
So what I would suggest, so we can move on, if this is a good suggestion, is that if you'd please go to Mazer and present our concern to them, and then ask them to supplement what I guess people are saying is the protection of the pole that's there and the protection of the gravel. It's actually partially drainage, right?
Correct.
Gravel and the pole. To supplement that for protection of people at the intersection who are standing waiting to cross from a car that might skid sideways into that location, what would they propose in terms of a solution? Whether it's a guardrail or 1 or 2 or 3 bollards, and then we will know what we're talking about here, and decide and find out how much of that is in the town right of way, how much of that is in the DOT right of way, and then we can move forward on it. But it's kind of frustrating to talk about something that we don't even know what it is yet. So
Yeah, particularly since we raised it 6 months ago.
So if we could just ask them they could just do a sketch, whatever it takes, and then we can move on so that we can get this thing approved.
And quickly, this is Eldad. Just one, Dick's original concern, I think, is particularly valid, especially when you look at the drawing that you guys are showing now. Because of the Roaring Brook Road median that extends sort of further out, you're sort of forced to take a little bit of a wider turn. So I know the thought was that 18.5 foot wide road bed is sufficient, but you're forced to take this wider turn that pushes you closer to the walkway. And then secondly, this drawing shows that the edge of the stone walkway to the road is you're telling me it's about 10 feet. In fact, you said maybe closer to 11. But is that so? I mean, the drawing on, I think your second tab here, the drawing, excuse me, the picture that you showed, that's 10, 11 feet. It's hard to tell. It looks like it's less than that from
It is where he has it now, Eldad. It's 2 feet. You can't really see
this. Yes, the stone is 2 feet here, and then about another 6 feet. So it's 8 as you get further up Roaring Brook Road. But as you get to the corner, it flares out a little bit. But it's a minimum of 8 to 10 feet between the edge of pavement and the stone dust pathway here. But yes, it is closer, obviously, at the corner. And I apologize if we misinterpreted Mr. Brownell's concerns.
Okay.
I think Eldad's comment is.
One last question. I'm just curious. On this intersection, there's a black square. What is that? And then there's two others.
Yeah,
three
so
others.
these are the covers for the signal pull boxes.
Okay.
Essentially the controllers for the.
All right,
That's
thank you.
essentially a small vault. Is that what that is?
Yes, it's like a small buried, so it's just a flat metal
Right.
cover.
It's like a plate.
Correct.
Got it.
So
Thank
that would not afford any protection whatsoever to a pedestrian then. It's
No, that's it's probably it's as low as the rocks.
Yeah, okay. I'm glad you asked that question, Dick, because I was interpreting that as one of the poles.
Yeah.
That's very important to know. So it really is wide open.
Yeah, and Tom raised the right conditions. If it's icy or snowy or whatever, and someone's going a little too fast. And the other concern, just to round this out, and I'll be quiet, is that the crosswalk takes you across to the bus stop on the other side. But eventually, we expect that to the right, going alongside the road, there'll be a walkway for children to be coming back from school or going to school back onto Annandale Road. And so while the pedestrian numbers right now are very low, there could be peaks during the morning and the afternoon, when there's higher levels of children. And I don't mind a child or two because they aren't as disengaged as 5 or 10 might be disengaged.
Well, I think the observation that Eldad submitted too is very important. The way that protrudes on the median protrudes, and the width. We've been there daily, so it encourages speed in making that left-hand turn. So again, with the wrong kinds of conditions, it could be a problem for any time if someone's not really paying close attention.
Yep.
So, and Bob, would you try to find what the town's jurisdiction is too, and where the town right of way is in Roaring Brook Road on
Will
that
do.
side, and see where these things might come together?
Actually, David, didn't you guys prepare an as-built? Hopefully you have good survey location of this right of way when you submitted it to the town. Is that corner shown, David?
I believe that it is, Bob.
So
Okay,
hopefully
great.
we should have that, Robert. I will get that for you.
So if I can just add one thing here, not to extend it too much, and really not to be hyperbolic about it, there's a high school right down the road here. And, you have kids driving, and, I've got a son who went, when he was a teenager, went sideways slid through ice into a curb and ruined my car. And another one who drove his own car and slid sideways into our garage on ice. Now, we're fortunate because they don't live here anymore. But the fact of the matter is that you have drivers here who may actually be inattentive. And this might be a condition which is not unlike every other condition, which has been proposed here that it is. It might be a special condition that needs a little bit more attention.
It's a great point, Tom.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Andy.
We will follow up on that. The other update I wanted to bring to you is that we did, as the chairman mentioned, make a submission just before Thanksgiving to address a number of the town engineer's comments from his November 15th memo. With that, were included updated drawings that included pond details, construction sequencing plans, the loop road set, and the Mfpd plan, and an updated residential subdivision plan. And Mark Ratz of our office has been in contact with Mr. Scioli and stands ready to continue to review those items with him. We provided clouded versions of those drawings so that he could see the changes that had been made, and supplied a red line tracking table with that. So we will continue to coordinate with him and look for his additional comments from that submission. With that, I'd like to go to the East Village, a short East Village site plan presentation. We've been working with the planning board for about a year since the town board adopted the amended RDCP for the East Village, and about a year before that. So as I start, I'd like to thank both the board and its consultants for its diligence and help as we've basically taken the PDC plan from a concept plan to a more detailed plan, but with very few changes, plan changes along the way. We start with the illustrative plan, Matt. So as you may recall, the East Village is located on a 26-acre parcel, which is to be created by the master subdivision that I referenced earlier. Its program consists of 91 townhomes, attached townhomes, served by interior drives connecting to the overall Chappaqua crossing circulation system. 91 fee simple lots. Each townhome has its own small lot. And then a 92nd lot that contains the open space, the roadways, and a balance of the common facilities. The next drawing, or the next set of overlay drawings, or the next two drawings, show the East Village plan as currently proposed in comparison to the RDC plan, a PDCP plan that was approved by the town board. I think it's on the same page. They're both on the same page, just move down or move up. There we go. So the bottom is the PDCP. The top is the East Village site plan. When you overlay them, the one drawing that we were just looking at, you can see that the red basically covers the blue. The buildings are basically in the same locations. The roadways are in the same locations. Some minor changes. You can see at the bottom of the page, the trail system has been adjusted slightly to avoid some earlier incursions towards the pond, to reduce the extent of walkway within the buffer while still providing a connection from left to right across the meadow, and also to account for changes in grading that were created during the refinement of the site plan. There was, in addition, one walkway added. It's actually outside the East Village that connects the retail parking area at the top left to the auditorium. So that was the extent of the plan changes that were made from PDCP to site plan.
Dennis, have you had a chance to look at these changed trails? I had thought that one of the features of the previous trails was the pond, and of course we had a loop around the pond. I certainly understand changing and removing some of these trails away from some of the homes. At the top, of course, we changed the configuration of the berm, if you will. But are you okay with these changes? Any thoughts on it?
Sure. Actually, it's interesting because I was looking not specific to this, but some of the trails in relation to the pond that were proposed, because I know that there's an area that is still mowed off of Cowden, and I said, okay, so that serves as pond access. And I said some of the other trails that are proposed, I was hoping to not have them. And again, this was in the discussion with Dave Walsh was part of it, and Cowden Lane Association, that if I was amenable to sort of allow the continuation of the maintenance of that area as sort of a view shed and physical accessibility to the pond from Cowden Lane. But I said, if we're going to do any of these trails that then would continue beyond what is maintained by Cowden Lane and into the more areas that have been sort of restored as wetlands and allowed to grow more, I said I would prefer to actually be offset from the pond, so you have your sort of your access edge from what's being maintained to cover off of Cowden, and then for the benefits that one would derive from not having sort of accessibility to the pond, maintaining it in a way where you may have to have lower vegetative heights or whatnot, but sort of to keep it more of like what would be good like wildlife cover in terms of allowing as much vegetation as possible within a certain width from the pond edge to actually reach its mature heights, if it were just left alone to grow naturally. So I admit to not seeing this before, specifically before it popped up on the screen, but I know that there was a plan to do some obviously trail around the pond.
So, Mr. Chairman, this is basically what this shows. The now proposed trails are the red lines, and coming from across by the guest house, they cross the top of the pond, pick up some existing trails, and then go down to the pond in one other location, but they're no longer shown to loop around the pond right at the edge.
Right.
That's to allow the vegetation to grow down by the edge.
Right. That was the question.
Dennis mentioned is that beginning back at Reader's Digest and continuing with Chappaqua Crossing, the Cowden neighbors have been permitted to access the pond from Cowden Lane for passive recreation, and they will continue to be able to do that. But this will not connect their access to these other trails which are accessible to the general public. One, keep the general public away from the pond edge, and to not have them wander down to Cowden Lane.
Well, one of the things that we've always done in trails is sought connectivity. So when we have trails out there, to connect those with existing ones. That was something that we've always looked at and tried to emphasize. Look, this is not a showstopper, of course, but perhaps we can look at this. I think it would be interesting to see where the other trails are, the offsite trails are that you're referring to, and how they might connect. The value in these kinds of trails is their connectivity and their usefulness to members of the public.
Yeah, it's not really a trail, I believe. Dave, don't they just mow up to the edge? Or?
The Cowden Lane folks just mow up to the edge. They have not like mowed trails in and around the pond. They just basically take it from the edge of Cowden Lane Road and just kind of clear it and use it as an area to recreate or walk or something along those lines. But there's no trails.
Okay. Well, still, nonetheless, I think it would be valuable to have some connection there from whatever they use right now for their recreational and environmental uses to connect. Whether it goes all the way around the pond, it may not have to do that, maybe, but somehow link in with your red trails here, I think would be helpful.
We could make a connection down to an open lawn area that they clear now. And so that would be, not marked, but you could certainly get from one to the other.
Right, right. Okay, thank you, Andy.
Yeah. So not only in plan view does the site plan conform to the 2019 PDCP approval, there have been, as we document in our latest submission, no changes to the environmental impacts that were studied. This is a table that by listing of impacts that were studied in the various EISs and listed in the finding statements. At the top of the page, there's a column that shows the approved MFPD thresholds, and then in orange, the East Village site plan thresholds, and they're basically the same across the board. And we've reviewed the secret documentation and presented that to the board for its review.
Right.
Thirdly, there were a number of conditions in the PDCP approval, one having to do with the guest house, or rather a series of resolutions having to do with the guest house. As you may recall, it's located at the bottom left of the screen here in the East Village plan. And we have been working with both the building department and other town staff in stabilizing the demolition, reviewing plans for future renovation and incorporation of that original building into the guest house facility. A second item had to do with Loop Road. The town board left it up to the planning board and the applicant to determine whether to raise the Loop Road. This is a section of the Loop Road from the auditorium heading northward along the side of the East Village. The applicant, as recommended by the planning board some months ago, even prior to the PDCP, has proposed to raise the Loop Road and shows the improvements as such. Now, at the last meeting, we had another question from the board that we studied, which was the potential provision of a connector driveway, I'll call it, from the Loop Road to the parking lot opposite the CPAC. And this is a sketch that we just finished today, so I was not able to submit it ahead of time, which shows, if you zoom in just a bit there, Matt, shows at the bottom by the CPAC drop-off, the extension of a concrete walkway as a place to stop, because you wouldn't want to stop in the middle of the crosswalk to drop somebody at the CPAC stairs. You'd pull up to the extended walkway and then potentially pull across the Loop Road to connect down to the parking lot. And we were concerned, or we looked to see whether those grades would be achievable. If you go then to the profile, what we found is that the grades, there's about a There's about a 6.5 foot change in elevation from the Loop Road down to the parking lot. And following the guidelines in the town's zoning code for driveways, we find that in a number of parameters, we exceed the maximum permitted. And we've submitted this to Mark Gratz, submitted this to Bob Scioli for an initial review this afternoon. I'm sure he hasn't had a chance to look at it, but we would look to continue to work with Mr. Scioli to review this, to see if there's any alternatives. At this point, it doesn't seem to meet those parameters. It's a little steeper than it could be, but we are, have prepared this and would look to review that further with him.
I'm sorry, Mr. Tong.
Yes, sir.
Were you going to apply for a variance because it's only Board of Appeals?
The variance would be to increase the steepness of the driveway. I don't think we would recommend from an engineering point of view that you increase the steepness of a driveway, certainly because of the shortness of the stretch. You know, if you have a longer driveway that's steeper, it's easier to become accustomed to that slope. But here, it's not only the driveway code or the code in the zoning code calls for a maximum break between sections of a driveway, as well as a maximum total slope. And because of the change in elevation and the length of the drive, we can achieve neither. But Mr. Scioli can look at that and see if he can make any suggestions for us, and we'll be happy to take them under advisement.
Can you go back to the drawing of the actual, not the grade there, but yeah, that. Thank you. Okay. Okay.
Can someone point out what's happening as in the drop off? Like, can someone just show it with their cursor or something where, how is one getting down here? I just want to understand how a car coming here is turning or moving.
So the loop road goes around the center of the site.
Yep.
And enters the driveway on the left to get to the main office parking area.
Yep.
There are two sidewalks shown in gray that extend from the parking area, so that if you went and parked, you would walk along one of those sidewalks to one of the crosswalks and across to the landing at the bottom of the CPAC stairs.
Yep.
One option for drop-off that we had originally noted was that you could turn, rather than stopping on the loop road, which if you were to stop in front of the landing would block the crosswalk, you could pull into the parking lot if you were coming from the left or the right and drop off along the long sidewalk on the right. And people could walk on the sidewalk and go to the crosswalk, across to the landing, up the stairs to the auditorium. There was a discussion at last meeting and a number of meetings. Well, is there an opportunity to potentially drop off on the side closest to the auditorium and then get into the parking lot in a quicker way rather than going all the way around, halfway around the loop road to get into a lower entry? So one of our challenges is that there is a change of elevation between the loop road and the parking lot, and fairly narrow stretch of land in which to put the driveway.
Got it.
Right.
You go back to the site plan. Yeah. Another condition of the town board's approval was that one townhome in block U be relocated further inboard in the site. There used to be 4 townhomes in that location. That townhome was flipped over to the center group of townhomes, but now there were 3 that increased the distance to the north property line in that location by about 35 feet and saved about half a dozen trees. In terms of the East Village site plan itself, just to review, there are 91 fee simple townhome lots. Townhomes on individual lots. We have submitted a updated subdivision plat showing those lots. That green highlight is the 26 acres, or the 32 acres rather, of the East Village. It forms the east side of the Chappaqua Crossing site. And then within that subdivision, created by the master subdivision, there would be 91 townhome lots. You can see them individually along the interior roads, as well as one common lot that is about 26 acres in size. So the net result of our working with the planning board over these months is to create a site plan, or to fully detail out the site plan, both in terms of architecture, site design, landscaping, stormwater management, and utilities that is coordinated with and conforming to the PDCP that was approved by the town board. And we look forward to any additional comments that you, members of the board or the public may have.
Okay, thank you very much, Andy.
Sure.
Questions, comments from board members?
Andy,
Again, we haven't received the updated material. We'll get that later on, of course, but any initial thoughts, questions?
well, I want to get right to Bob on the subject of, if you could get that drawing back up again, Andy, for the drop-off condition.
Yeah.
Bob, I know you probably haven't had much time to study this, probably no more than we have. Do you have any thoughts about this?
Well, basically, I looked at the gradients that they exceed the maximum as per the code in chapter 6488. And basically, it's two codes they exceed. And one of them for the maximum delta, which is basically going from a gradient to a gradient, they exceed it by 0.71%. The maximum grade going from one elevation to another along a driveway can't exceed a delta, meaning the difference between the two grades of 6%.
So can I, Andy, could you get that profile up?
Yeah.
There, thank you.
Let me try to draw on this, guys, to show you. So basically, the delta from here to here. So basically, this difference in here in degrees can't exceed 6%. So when you get 6.5 minus 13.21, you get 6.5 minus 13.21. You have a difference of 6.71%. So that technically exceeds the grade by 0.71% per code. So that's one area of the code it exceeds. The next one is this gradient here is 13.21%. Does everyone see that?
Yes.
Here. The maximum grade based on the chapter is 10%. The planning board could allow up to 12. So if the planning board is inclined to allow 12, they would exceed it by 1.21%. If not, they would exceed it by 3.21%.
Right.
Now, as Clinton stated before, anything that's in chapter 60 can only be approved by either the town engineer or the planning board. However, correct me if I'm wrong, Clinton, the applicant could go before the zoning board of appeals and get relief from these exceedances. Is that true, Clinton?
Yes, I believe so, yes.
So, that would be up to the applicant if they feel comfortable to go before the zoning board. And if the planning board is really inclined to have this, to obtain those variances from the zoning board. It happens at building department level quite, sometimes. So, I mean, that's their option to do that. I don't know how Andy feels about it, but they're more than free to do that as a matter of course.
Well, before we go,
can I interrupt?
Before we go that far, I'd like to ask about the drawing, because it says here that the blends, like the blends maximum 6%, which is change in grade would be, and so at the top it says it's 5%. I don't know why, if that's 6, doesn't it reduce the 13.2 down to something which maybe is a little bit closer to 12? And potentially get the lower blend down to 6.
Well, you're right. You're right. That's a good point. When you're coming off a PI station 1860, elevation 407, Tom, you can bring that grade down a little bit more, and it might help the gradient going between the two entrances to the driveway, and you might drop that down to 13.21. You'd have to play with the numbers and see what you get, but that's a good point. Yes, you can do that.
Yeah, so
if I may, we treated that top 5% is coming off a loop road. We treated that in the same way that a driveway off a road has a maximum of 5% for the first 35 feet off the center line of that road. That's why it was set at 5%.
Well, if you read the code further, you can go up to maximum 7%.
Okay, I didn't see
So I
that.
mean, to Tom's point, you can actually, increase that, say, 1.5%. And when you find out you come down at 25 feet, when you do the math and differential between those two aprons, you might drop it down a bit, which is going to help the variance as well. So that's a good point, Tom.
Yeah, I also like to point out that this drawing, it looks to me like it's an exaggerated vertical scale. I don't think it's one to one, unless I'm mistaken. Andy, isn't this an exaggerated vertical scale?
It is, but typically road profiles are done exaggerated so you can see the change.
Okay, fair enough. For the public looking at this, though, they may not understand that, and they may look at this and say, "Oh my gosh, I don't want to drive down that thing." So it might be helpful to have a supplemental drawing next time that shows the true profile, so that we can all get a better sense of what it would be, what it might actually be.
We're happy to do that.
Thank you.
I'm actually encouraged very much by these figures and having them so close to the permitted code levels, because it seems to me that with some tweaking and attenuating the angle going down to the parking lot and giving us a little bit more space to work with without going up any higher, I think there may be some ways of tweaking this and bringing it within the code and within our discretion. So I thank you, Andy. I'm very encouraged by this, because I think that there's I thought it was going to be tougher, frankly. So I think that I'm encouraged by this. I think there's a good chance that we can get this to work without having to go through, zoning board of appeals and extreme waivers, et cetera. So thank you, and I'm very encouraged by it. I know Bob hasn't had sufficient time to look at this, but I think from our standpoint, as a matter of policy, this makes good sense. So figuring out a way to make it work is I think something we would be really interested in seeing.
Well, we're happy to have Bob's input, and we'll work with him going forward.
Thank you.
Will do.
I'd like to, I have something that appeared on one of your drawings, and maybe I haven't been paying sufficient attention to this part of the site. Andy, could you get up the overall site plan that shows the building footprints on it? Not the lot lines, but the building footprints. Yeah, that one. Can you zoom into those units which are on the upper right? That's good enough right there, thanks. So it just all of a sudden, I realized that this road H, which is actually that the buildings have their front door actually facing to the upper left rather than to the road. What we're looking at here are the garages on road H. And yeah, and it's the first time I picked up on that, and I apologize, but the road H ends up being the address road for these units. And the road H really serves as an alley. That configuration really on all the other units would be essentially an alley. I'm sorry, can you zoom out again? Yeah, okay, so right there is good. So along road F, that block which is B, B, and Z, right? That also has the garages facing the road rather, and the units facing the other way. But no, that's okay. That one's okay. Forgive me. So C, C, D, D, and E, E essentially have the access road to the units is it's really to the back doors of the units and the garages. And I think I understand why it's that way. Because if you're going to fit this in there, you can't really put that road on the other side of the units, because the grades, you can't get to it because the grades, it falls off so steeply to get down to the loop road.
That's correct. And the units have been designed for some time such that all the front doors either face a street, the main loop, interior loop road, an open space, or pathways.
That's correct.
So these units also, their front doors face an open space. It's a little wider open space, but we wanted to be consistent with the rest of the unit.
Well, the open space in the other units is actually, it's an interior green space, right? It's a community green space rather than looking out down the slope here onto the loop road. It's a different condition, but I can't see that you would be able to get essentially a road and an alley around these units and be able to do it within the setbacks. Maybe you could, within the setbacks and the grades. I can see that the grades would be a real problem.
Right, more the grades.
Okay, fair enough.
But there is going to be a walkway in front of the houses, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. You connect through from the parking areas to a walkway along the backside, yes. Yeah. You can walk
Okay.
all the way around.
And will there be walkways between CC and DD and EE?
Yes, you can see there's walkways between the units,
The clusters.
yeah, between the groups.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I can't see any other configuration that would solve this problem because because of the grades and where the property line is, it's just too narrow. I'm guessing. Yeah.
What's the concern?
Well, the concern is that the addresses for the buildings at the back of the building. I mean, the front of the building, the front of these homes is there's no address for the front of the home. This is not the way you plan a community, I don't think.
I agree.
But I also think that there's a dimensional problem here. I can't figure out how to solve it otherwise, just looking at it. As a fundamental principle, is we have tried to follow here in town, and it's not always easy to do. And this is a case where it might be impossible to do, but we don't like to have garages facing the street. And this is the street for that neighborhood. Road H is the street for the neighborhood. And it's
this is more of an.
Can I just finish? It's nothing but the garages. You're seeing nothing but garages. Sorry, Andy, go ahead.
Yeah, this is a we call it a road. It's a minor alley. It's similar to the other alleys. It's kind of the reverse of the W, X, and Y units. Right, you get to them from the back, just next to the loop road, and you walk through them to get to the walkway at the front door. So it's a flip side of that.
Yeah, right. Yes, but it doesn't function the same way. I mean, it just doesn't. You know, the presence of the buildings in the neighborhood here is actually a bunch of garages. The front doors of these units has nothing to do with the neighborhood, and it's just, it looks like an outlier, and it's the visual qualities here are not going to be good. It's just not going to be good, I don't think. But
well,
again,
I think it'll be different than the other unit.
It will be different.
But this,
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I without changing or reducing the number of units, I agree with you, Tom. I don't see how this is kind of weaker as far as egress and ingress. It definitely will have a better view, but it's gonna be, and it's treed over on the other side to a certain extent, so it's a good view, but you have to walk. I mean, the only way I could see off the top of my head is to flip the units and sort of have more small alleys and cut the number of units from 11 down to 6 or something like that, and do pairs, which are rotated 90 degrees.
Well, we had, if I may, we had a discussion with the board probably 8 to 10 months ago about potentially using a different unit in this location, a garage entry unit rather than the same unit that's used throughout the rest of the East Village.
Yeah,
I believe the decision was made that for architectural consistency, this remains better and would have a different outlook, but as Mr. Brunel points out, I think would have great views from the fronts of these units out towards the valley.
Yeah, well, I think that it's well, the only thing I can say about this, which gives me a little bit of comfort, is that this is the last phase of this project. And it's probably, I don't know what the absorption rate is going to be with this for in the market for this product. The product itself may change over time. And so if this happens before 2030, I would be surprised. So there may be, by the time we get there, by the time Toll Brothers gets there, there may be a different unit type which they want to do in any event, and it might afford the opportunity to do something a little different at this end.
Okay, anyone else? Any other questions, comments at this point?
No, I like the way it's shaping up around the CPAC, and and the rest of it looks like it's really come together fairly well, save the last 11 units.
Mm-hmm.
Tom, I see your point, and I understand what you're saying. This being also an outlier, maybe it's less problematic. And to your point about phasing and timing, I'm excited for this project, and I'm curious to hear from the applicant what they think about timing, given the current market conditions and what this looks like, if you know.
Yeah, look, timing is certainly at the board. We're at the mercy of an approval schedule right now. I would have loved to have been in the ground 9 months ago to have benefited from the activity of the market over the summer and into the fall. But we're very bullish on the job, on the location, on the community. We think that if everything goes as planned, we're going to have shovels in the ground this spring.
And that's thank you. And that's I don't, I'm only on the board about 7-8 months, and so the phasing of this East Village project is what?
Andy, do you have the phasing plan handy or not? The color-coded one, if it's available, is probably easiest.
James, I don't think all the board members, there's some new board members, I don't think they know who you are, so you might want to just quickly introduce yourself.
James Fitzpatrick, I'm the division president for Toll Brothers in New York and Connecticut division. Yeah, so our construction phasing plan was really born out of necessity to manage and balance our earthwork. If the board remembers, that was a pretty detailed analysis and exercise that we went through about this time last year, the winter of last year, making sure that we had our phasing all worked out so that we were balanced from an earthwork perspective. So those phases in orange are the final phases of the project. With the phases up in light, pink reddish color being the initial phase, which will be our model homes, sales office, and also an offsite for us offsite detention basin that we need to construct first for stormwater control. And then we'll move into the purple, which will allow us to build our, the yellow, which will allow us to complete the loop road and the retaining wall, and then over to the purple, which will allow us to move into our clubhouse.
Yeah, so Eldad, I'm excited about the project too, and I just want to give all the credit to James and his team, and to Felix and his team. They've been really terrific to work with, and getting this far. And I think that I'm feeling very comfortable with where we are. I don't anticipate any big surprises. I think we've been through it in detail. And I really appreciate their help. And I think we're going to have a pretty nice neighborhood up here, which I think is what the site calls for.
Thanks, Tom. I mean, you and I spent a lot of time on the corner and other places, and a lot of your fingerprints are on this project and have helped it. Obviously, it's taken a little bit longer than probably any of us wanted, but you know, I think we've solved 90% of the issues that have been in front of everyone. And I think the ultimate result of the collaborative effort that's occurred both at retail, at the 200 building here at Chappaqua is, you know, overall, this is a project we can all be proud of. And I appreciate everybody's input and at times their patience with the fact that I've lost my patience.
Well,
We never noticed.
We've been known to lose our patience as well every once in a while. So, and we appreciate you sticking with us and getting through this as far as we have.
Well, Christmas wouldn't be Christmas without the planning board, and I frankly just don't, you know, being that we're in December, I don't know what else to do. So here we are. So are we at a place where we can celebrate this, celebrate the completion of our 3-year journey together?
Mr. Chairman, it's a public hearing, so you should ask if there's any public that would like to speak.
Yeah, is there any other comments from board members? And then Pamela, is there anyone on the line?
No one, none of the attendees have their hands raised at this point.
Okay. We'll take a few moments in case someone wants to.
One has raised their hand.
Okay.
Let me bring them in.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Lewis, you can talk.
Hi, Sabrina. Hello. So I had the.
This is Bob Lewis?
Yes, this is Robert Lewis. I live at 2 Roaring Brook Road. On the subject of the drop-off for the cars, going back to that, I know that it's, I'm not quite sure how that all happened, but I'll just share with you. When I was a brand new architect, I designed a 4-story parking garage in Richmond, Virginia, which I was directed to include a ramp, a very short ramp. And on the upper level of this parking garage was to be 2 ATM stations, drive-in ATMs. On the very first day when the project opened, the ATMs opened, a little old lady in a Cadillac Eldorado with the pointed fins came up the ramp. It was a 14% ramp with 2 6% blends, top and bottom. And she wiped out not one, but both of the ATMs. So, you know, if cars are going up your little driveway, there will be a problem. Going down, I have no, I suspect that if you had one-way traffic on that little connector, you'd be okay. But I was, I was right. I protested when my boss told me to do that. But I would strongly encourage you to think twice before you have a ramp that's that steep. That's very, very tight.
Well, for clarification, I think that it's always been intended to be a one-way down to get into the parking lot.
Yes. Well, that's good. That's good. As long as no one's trying to go up that ramp and make a turn onto the collector road or onto the main driveway, the loop road, I would feel much better.
Yeah, That would engender a whole bunch of visibility issues, lines of sight, with cars parked and cars moving and people moving.
Yeah, yeah.
We agree.
Okay.
It's a good comment, though. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
I had one other comment, just looking at the layout. I know that people don't always use streets in the East Village. They don't use necessarily the pavement or the alley or the road. They don't distinguish. But I'd like to think that there is going to be a lot of pedestrian traffic on those various surfaces, and that it's hard for me to visualize. I haven't really been following the development of the East Village much, so I can't say that I understand this, but it looks like it begs for some kind of public space that unifies, that ties together the pedestrian experience.
Andy, I'm sorry, Andy, could you help this discussion by putting that site plan up again?
So I see some trees. I don't really see sidewalks necessarily, because the people could walk on the loop road or on the road A, I guess it's called. But is there? Do you have a sense that that there's a community experience moving through here?
Andy, could you describe this?
Yes, the walking experience, Mr. Lewis, has been a critical component of the East Village since this arrangement was changed, probably with Tom's help, at least 3 years ago. The buildings face the main Road A. There are sidewalks on both sides of Road A. There are sidewalks interconnecting all the fronts of the units. You can see in the first open space on the left, there's a open lawn with a sidewalk running around it. So the location of the East Village in close proximity to the retail center was key in making that pedestrian connection, not only to the retail center, but also to the 200 building and the office building, has been a key element of Chappaqua crossing planning for many years. It's been, requested the planning board, picked up on here and adopted as a key component of the Chappaqua crossing circulation system. So it's designed as much for walkers as it is for drivers.
So we see sidewalks and parallel parking both sides and a two-way street?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yes, if you could zoom out to the whole plan for a second, Andy. So it's a relatively big neighborhood, and it's a long one. And one of the things that we thought would be good to do was to try and break down the neighborhood a bit by creating, sub neighborhoods. And to do that, there's the introduction of these smaller green spaces on two ends of the project, the ones that the units that the blocks K, L, M, and N surround, and then further to the right, V, W, X, Y, and AA. And those are a common park green space. And then there are other units which are more like traditional muse units, which like D, E, C, and F on the left, upper left, and that provide an address for units, all serviced by traditional alleys, which are the sub roads, road E, I can't read it here, but
like an eye doctor test here.
Yeah, that give access to the parking garages and back doors, and the back doors of the units. So the addresses of the buildings are either on this main neighborhood street, which is Road A, or a park-like unit, or a muse environment. And that's why the CC, DE, DD, and EE up in the upper right are kind of disappointing, because we couldn't get that done up there.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public?
No one has their hands raised at this time.
Okay, Sabrina, when do you expect that you'll be able to get through the materials that we have and the other materials that we're expecting? Do we want to schedule this for our next meeting is what, the 15th? Do we have enough time for that, or we do this into 2021 next year?
You know, I think that I think that the applicant still has to provide some clarification, some documentation, and it sounded as if you wanted the public to be able to see that. So I would recommend you continue the public hearing to the 15th. At that time, what I can do is try between Felicia, Bob, and myself and Clinton, try and put together a draft resolution for you. But given the current workload of the office, I don't know if we can promise to have a draft. We will try our hardest to have one to you. As you saw with today's resolution for NICIC, it was a very last minute submission to you. And this is going to take a lot more to make sure we get all of the information in there, particularly given the specific changes that the board has been making tonight and discussions that may be had on the 15th. So we can attempt, per the board's direction, to compile a resolution, but I would be hesitant to say that we will have it done by the 15th. We will try our hardest.
Well, I think at the very least, then we can adjourn the public hearing, plan to re-meet on this on December 15. If there are any additional changes and additional information, additional headway that we hear from the applicant, that's fantastic. We still have some issues that we want to hear from and work on with Bob, for example, in that turnoff. So there's a little bit more work to be done here. Even some of the little tweaking down there with the trails. So.
And so the question also, Mr. Chairman, is the applicant going to be able to submit the documentation necessary regarding the discussion tonight? When do they think they'll be able to submit that?
With regard to the intersection, that will take some coordination and potential contact with the DOT and Mr. Scioli. So I would ask, and that be a condition rather than a precondition. The other information regarding the trails can certainly be done shortly, and the ramp could also we can coordinate with Bob as to how to make the ramp work. That could also be done in the short term. I think those two items we can certainly get back to the board. The item on the intersection will take a little more time.
Well, I think we should, again, adjourn the public hearing. If we wish to adopt a motion to request staff to give its best effort to review the additional material and prepare a resolution for the 15th, we can do so. I wouldn't make it ironclad. I think it's just best efforts at this point. There are a few moving parts out here, obviously.
We'd appreciate that. We'd appreciate that best efforts for the resolution for the 15th, Bob. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, and obviously it goes without saying we need, the mutual support from the applicant to get the materials in as quickly as possible to make this happen, if it can happen. I won't hold out yet a special meeting, but we have done special meetings in snow, in our wetsuits and snowsuits, making snow angels out there. So that's always a possibility. But
what's that? The special meeting has always worked very nicely for us. It's
well, yes, for you, yes. It's.
I think you might want to call it something other than the special meeting. Maybe we call it I don't know, the Felix meeting.
Maybe we call it your moving up ceremony. Let's all hope so, anyway.
I'll agree to anything you want to name it if we can do it.
Another naming opportunity.
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, but anyway, all kidding aside, we'll try to do what we can. The applicant will try to do what they can, and understanding that there's a lot of stuff going on right now in the department. So we'll try to make cut through the swath and see what we can do. So is there a motion then to direct staff to use its best efforts to work with the applicant in an attempt to get a resolution out for the 15th of December, our next meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Motion carries, and we're all set then.
Thanks
So-
very much. Thanks, Bob.
We'll see you then.
Thank you. Thank you,
We'll see you in
board.
a couple weeks.
Oh,
Thank you.
one suggestion, Sabrina, when you to try and get this all farther along faster, you know, usually in these documents we have all of the documents that you know we've used. That'll be about 6 pages probably. But then we get into the whereases, and some of the whereases are, you know, pretty easy to do. And it's just, there's a couple that'll be hanging maybe. And so that, to me, the whereases and what's left to be done is something that maybe you could get out a little faster, you know, given all of the other, you know, issues that you have going.
We will do our best.
We can add the other stuff later.
Right.
Well, I would hate for the board not to have a completed resolution to adopt on the 15th.
Yeah, we can't vote on a resolution. It's not complete.
Right. But we can
And
say,
so-
hey, it looks like it's
so
complete.
To be quite honest with you, it's going to take a bit to put this resolution together. We're going to
Yes.
do our best to try and get it done.
Yeah.
This could
That's
be,
all I can promise at this
it could
point.
be a
Yeah.
beast.
Understood. Understood. And you know, let's all hope that we stay healthy too in the next couple of weeks. I mean, this is things are spiking and it's a little unpleasant.
Yes,
So
that's true.
We'll give it our best. Okay, so we'll
Thank
see you
you.
guys then on the 15th. Very good. Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Good
Thank you.
job.
I'm leaving also, Bob.
Clinton, you don't want to stay? I mean, this is like extra credit. Maybe we could give you CLE for this.
I was so happy to see Jennifer getting back on.
Take care, Clinton.
See
See
you
you,
later.
Glenn. Thanks.
Good night, Clinton.
Thank you, Clinton.
Thanks, everyone.
So our next item is an informal appearance. This is the first one for the Ferens, 10 Cabin Ridge Road. This is a preliminary subdivision plat approval for an application for a lot line change.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Good to see everyone again. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving. Brad Schwartz from Zarin and Steinmetz. I'm joined by Jonathan and Maxine Ferens, as well as I believe Mike DeBellis, who's the co-applicant, should be joining. I don't see him at the moment. And I'm also joined by my colleague, Matt Acasella. So this is I think a fairly straightforward lot line change application. If it's okay, can I share my screen for a couple of minutes?
Sure.
I'm promoting Mr. DeBellis to panelist. He was in the attendee area.
So let me, hope I do this correctly. Can you see the aerial?
Not yet.
Not yet. There it is. Got it. Now?
Yeah.
Terrific. So, the 30, it was easier to pin 30 Cabin Ridge Road. This is the DeBellis property, and the Ferens house is here. So I'll bring up the lot line change plat prepared by the surveyor in a moment. I just wanted you to see the aerial that's located off of Taconic. Here's Cabin Ridge Road, which is a circular road off of Campfire. So just so you have the context as to where we are, I could zoom out a little further. So that's the aerial. Again, here's the DeBellis home. Here's the Ferens home. Now I will pull up the survey. Give me a second. No. Here it is. Okay. So So this is the lot line change plat prepared by the surveyor. So this is the DeBellis home here, and this is the Ferrens home located here. This whole application is taking this property line and moving it north about a half acre so that the Ferrens property gains this half acre site. I'll zoom out a little further. The DeBellis property runs, right? I'm sorry, I just got to minimize my screen. The zoom here. Okay, so this is the DeBellis property here. The property line runs up this way. So it's an oddly shaped lot, which is why on the aerial it was easier to show you where this house is located. The Ferrens property is about this 1 acre site right here, with the access drive off Cabot Ridge. And so again, the property line here would be dissolved, move over a half acre. It allows some additional buffer on this side, the north side of the Ferrens home. Right now, this property line is up pretty close to the house. So by moving the line over about a half acre, it just creates some additional buffer between the home and what would now be the new property line. There's currently overhead wires that service the DeBellis property. So there would be an easement within this half acre lot that would make sure that Con Ed and DeBellis and any future owner can get access to maintain those above ground utility lines.
So Brad, can I ask a question?
Sure.
That overhead utility, the power line, does that serve only those two properties, or does it serve other properties in the area?
My understanding is just those properties.
Thank you. So I'm curious about this lot line move. Is there any disadvantage or any problem, real practical problem with where the lot line is now? Have there been incidents that have caused a problem, or it seems to me that it's a relatively benign condition because it's all woods over there anyway, isn't it?
Exactly. And both properties are currently zoning compliant. Both would remain zoning compliant after the lot line change. So it's just an opportunity for, again, for the Ferrenses to acquire an additional half acre. They've sought to do this for quite some time, literally decades back. They've always been interested in acquiring some additional land on this side, again, just to create some more buffer from that side of the home.
Well,
So,
you know what we often anticipate in situations like this is that the extra property is, and the applicant certainly has every right to do it, but extra property often is with the intent of doing more improvements on the property that otherwise there wouldn't be a place to do it, or specifically they want to do improvements in that area. So I look at this as something coming down the road, and in that light, want to be sure that if these lines are drawn this way, that they are drawn in a way which might facilitate that done properly, as opposed to causing problems with an application that then comes in and wants to do something that doesn't fit properly. So I'm not suggesting it by any means that the applicant commit to any future use of this that they're not prepared to in order to get this lot line changed. I'm just suggesting that if there is some future improvement that's anticipated, that the applicant be certain that he's getting enough land in order to do it in the right way.
yeah, no, we certainly appreciate that concern, Mr. Curley, and thank you for that. And Jonathan, who's here tonight, this is not about future improvements. It's about simply maintaining some additional land and some additional buffer. So we have thought that through. We'll revisit it to triple check and make sure, but we're comfortable with where the line has been drawn to accommodate the purposes and objectives that the Ferrenses have.
I think the overhead utilities would make it anything that a future owner might do. The overhead utilities make it more difficult. If it's for just maintaining the trees and the scenic aspects of that, I think it'll be good. I appreciate Tom's thoughts to make sure that everybody has thought this out, so you don't get into somebody accidentally building something because in the future, a future owner builds something that he thinks, oh, that would be cool. And then we have to come back and, and figure out, why'd you do it? And why does it have to be that big or whatever? So,
Can I ask about that utility line? Is that actually is that a Con Ed easement, or is that a private, are those poles and that line actually just part of owned by the residences?
My understanding is it's Con Ed, but we can confirm it. The surveyor picked up those lines and simply showed it's not an existing easement, it's a proposed easement, because we knew that if the line moves over, we couldn't Ferenz could not put anything on the property that would interfere with the maintenance and the ongoing operation of those utility lines.
Good.
Okay, you said earlier that line also served the Forenz's house. Is that true? Or the Forenz's getting power off?
Yeah, my understanding is
Can I say something, Brett?
Yeah.
That line does not serve us at all. Our line comes straight up through the woods directly to the house.
Very good. Then that proposed easement is probably an easement for the house service line from Con Ed to the house, right?
Yeah, and I might also add that my wife and I have lived in this house for 46 years. And starting about 44 years ago, we tried to buy a half acre or an acre from the original owner. Never got anywhere. She passed away. We tried to buy it from her nephew who inherited it. Never got anywhere. But it's really been a dream of ours to have more land on that side, because if you notice, the house is really skewed in that upper right corner of the plot. And we just would like to have more green space, more forest, more of a buffer.
Good. Brad, the property between the property line and the roadbed, Cabin Ridge Road, especially down at the bottom, is that just the town easement? Is that what that is? It seems to be very substantial in some areas, especially down there. Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, where the cursor is right now.
Yep.
Yeah, so Cabin Ridge Road, we tried to pull some of the old maps. It's a private road. I'm not sure who owns, this may just be part of the right of way of the paved Cabin Ridge Road.
But is there a right of way in that area from the friend's house or from that property to go to that side of Cabin Ridge? Or are they restricted only going to, I don't see the directions here. I guess that's north.
Yeah, north is, the arrow, north is to the right.
Okay. So that would but to be the east. They have access. That's west, I guess, up there. So that's where they currently have it. But then where you had the cursor before, Brad, would there be a right of access to Cabin Ridge Road in that area?
Great question, Mr. Chairman. I don't know definitively, presumably so. But I'm not aware of anything that would prohibit another curb cut here off of accessing Cabin Ridge Road. I don't know for sure. I don't know the legal status of this land between the paved Cabin Ridge Road and the property boundary.
Bob, so is there an HOA that owns this property, do you think? Yeah. Because it's private property that is owned by the community? Since it's a private road?
Is that a question for me, Robert?
Sure.
No, I mean, I thought you said, I don't know. Sorry. I mean, I don't know. Like Brad said, the only way to find out who really owns it would be a title search, but it's certainly not owned in any way, shape, or form by the town.
Right. Okay.
Well, another minor question, I guess, is if we assume for the moment that it's private property, a private road, then I guess, and we're not sure about an HOA, if there is one, is there on the bottom part of the circle that we're just talking about, right in the same area, right there, yeah, that if there's an owner there, has that owner been brought into this whole thing as to, that something is happening here. That owner should be notified, right?
Correct.
When it goes to public hearing, we will circulate notices. And if there is an owner of that property that is in our tax records, we'll identify.
Okay.
Well, the issue I'm raising is, we certainly understand and appreciate the Ferentz's interest and their desire here in their application. But at some future point, with this now combined, could that new lot line, is there enough space to subdivide this further so that you had some sort of driveway to the east, I guess, right? East, that area that we're talking about on Cabin Ridge Road, so that this could be subdivided further. Is there enough space? Is this R1A?
Yeah, this is a 1 acre zoning district. And so in total, the new property would measure 1.6 acres.
Okay, so it's still insufficient. Okay, thank you, Brad. Well, insufficient unless we find out that this other property somehow is developable in part of these parcels, almost by default.
If I could just make a comment on it, we have surveys that go back to 1936. And this land down in that corner is not owned by any homeowner. It actually is the water distribution as the water comes in from Campfire Road underneath Cabin Ridge. And then the water supply for virtually all the residents but one who has a well comes from this area and then is distributed to all the houses.
Odd. I mean, not that the water runs through there, but it's odd that no one owns it.
It's odd.
Well, somebody it's got to be owned by something or somebody.
Exactly, yeah.
So it seems to me it's probably some overall sort of district association that must, local association that must have ownership of it. But I understand what we're saying, Bob, but in order for that to be developable under any case, the applicant would have to come back and move that property line.
Correct. Unless through some sort of legal operation that has become attached to his property. So it can happen. And it's just very unusual. I think we should just have the information. Okay. I don't think it's a showstopper, but I think it really is something we should understand. And to your point, Tom, when we do these lot line changes, we try to anticipate what might happen in the future and whether or not it is as benign as we think it is. I think this is benign. I don't think there's going to be any problem. But I think just to close all the loops and for our own information would be interesting to see that and know what that is.
Well, to that point, Bob, first I want to commend Mr. and Mrs. Ferenz on their tenacity of pursuing this half acre for 44 years. You did it, and so congratulations on that. Secondly, I also want to say that I completely understand that there's a difference between having this wooded buffer adjacent to your home that you own and could probably walk on with no issue versus having it being part of your actual property. I understand that kind of the difference, both real and psychological there. And so I appreciate wanting to create a buffer, to add that line. And completely agree that this feels benign and something that we can, I think, relatively easily support. But the only question I would have is that not what plans do the Ferentzes, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing the name, the Ferentzes have for that additional half acre, but where does that put us as a board if, down the road this property gets sold, and does that change anything for us for the next owner? Because the next owner might say, oh, look, I have this entirely free area, this additional half acre. Yes, there's the utility easement, but these aren't high tension power lines. These are just lines that service the home, and one could theoretically clear some of the land here or the structure. And I'm not opposed to that either, but just, does that take our jurisdiction out of it entirely by moving this line now?
Well, I understand that concern and looking at the future but in this particular case, I wonder if that wouldn't be penalizing the variances for some future action that somebody else might or might not take. It seems to me that might be a bit of an overreach.
I'm not looking to penalize anyone, Tom.
And if I could address that quickly, nothing that we're doing now would interfere with your board's jurisdiction in the future. So if any other landowner wanted to, either subdivide to a second lot, again, there's not enough acreage to do it as of right, but even if there was some sort of expansion or some other use of tennis court, whatever it might be, it would have to come back before the board, show compliance with all the coverage calculations, FAR requirements. So simply moving the lot line over doesn't guarantee either the current owner or a future owner any absolute right to make improvements without getting approvals by the town.
Good point.
Very good.
Okay, Sabrina, you had some thoughts?
Yeah, it's really just general information. It's a type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. The applicant did provide a plan with the water lines, as noted in my memo at the time that this was written. We did not have it, but they did submit it. Assurances that there's no construction or earth moving proposed as part of the application. Both lots involved in the lot line adjustment will remain zoning compliant, so there's no non-conformity. And in accordance with section 113-3, the planning board can waive jurisdiction and consider this application both a preliminary application and a final subdivision. So you can do that at the same time. And given all of the information that's been provided, I would recommend a public hearing to move this forward.
Right. Okay. Okay. Any other thoughts from anyone on this application?
I had just one question.
Sure.
Does anyone know what that area is of that piece of land that we're not sure who it belongs to?
I think that the applicant should provide us some information about that, prior to the public hearing. And Brad, the question is this something that you can do? And then it may affect the date within which the board holds the public hearing, because I think you should have that information before then.
Yeah, let us look into it some. Let me see what I could quickly gather from public records. I would be hesitant, if it's okay with the board, not to engage in a full-blown title search if I can quickly and easily ascertain who owns that land. We're certainly not asserting any rights to that property.
Right.
So let's see what we can pull from old file maps and prior title. And Sabrina, I'll circle back to you and let you know what I've found. And we could also check the tax records, as you mentioned earlier. We would have to notify whoever owns that property anyway. So let's see what comes up simply by checking the town records as well.
Yeah.
So then
I'm just curious to know what the acreage is. That's all, really.
Yeah. So if Brad, other than, in addition to finding out if you could get some area dimensions on that, it would be helpful. And then I would recommend, if Brad, you thought that you could have this additional information into my office by December 14th, maybe, or at least have a good direction to it, then I would recommend that the board set the public hearing for January 5th.
I am curious about this drawing for a second. I'm looking at the Loop Road, the top. It shows a 30-foot right-of-way easement for that road, and it continues all the way around to the left down to the Y intersection, and then it just sort of disappears. Is it that the 30-foot right, there's a 30-foot easement for the road, which is just not drawn on that section, which goes from where the cursor is to the right?
Yeah, that's my best guess, Mr. Curley, that easement continues until it meets up with Campfire Road.
Well, it continues all the way around to the right also, doesn't it?
Yep, it's a circular.
Yeah, all the way around, I would guess.
Yep.
I mean, it's not drawn, but
right.
But I'm wondering if that also might be one of the things that would constrain any future development in that section, which is, we've been talking about. Move your cursor to the left. Over in there. I mean, there are going to be constraints to anything anybody would be able to do there probably anyway, if there was a common roadway easement for Cabin Ridge Road through there.
Right.
I'm just suggesting that it's much less of a concern than it needs to be. And I don't think that that we ought to go to any extent, any lengths that might cause inordinate costs in chasing this down or time in chasing this down.
I agree. I think that makes good sense. I think Brad has indicated he'll take a quick look, but again, to go through a full title search on this is, I think, is crazy.
Yeah, the only other thing that I think would be nice, I appreciate that we have an aerial and you probably can zoom down and get some better shots as to you know, what the leaves off looks like, you know, from top. But it would be nice if we had some photos that indicated what the property looks like from the roads that you know, go around, and you know, so we can get a sense of that.
Sure.
It would be sort of like a site visit.
Yep. We could take some photos and just put it on a board.
Okay.
Or I guess a PDF it would have to be.
Yeah.
So with that, Sabrina, so I'm sorry, so could we have the public hearing on the 15th? Whatever I find out in terms of the title to the no man's land, I'll get that to you, you know, within a week or so.
I think that's up to the board.
You want the, you said the 15th or you said the 5th? Brad?
15th of December, right, Brad?
15th.
Next meeting? Well, we don't have any additional work or anything else to look at, so we'll have a couple of updates on the sketching and some information. There's not a whole lot of material to go through. So I'm perfectly fine to try to do that if the applicant can do it. And if you have any need to perhaps close this deal before the end of the year, that might be helpful to you.
Well, it is in that to that end. Is it inappropriate to ask for a draft resolution?
That was going to be my next question.
You're welcome.
We really work as a team here. I think that's appropriate. Others?
I think the answer should come from, or advice should come from Sabrina as to when a draft could be done.
So what with the board is that Bob and I are supposed to be on vacation the last several weeks of December. As management employees in the town, we have to use our vacation or lose it. So there's a lot on our plate right now. And that is all I can say. We can make an attempt. And you know that all of us work to the ends of the earth for our applicants and everything we do. So we can try, but again, I would hate to commit.
I agree with that. I wouldn't do that.
And I will
wouldn't
tell
commit.
you, and to Felicia's credit, you know, she has been working as a relatively new employee during COVID. Out of everything, remote working, my office excels at making sure residents and applicants are 100% taken care of. The real downside to this is the fact that I have 2 new employees in my office and training them is extremely difficult during COVID. So she deserves a lot of credit at trying to piece together things that came secondhand to Janice. And you know, the challenge right now is getting the resolutions in good shape for the board to react to. And as you saw today, you know, we're struggling a little bit.
And to your point, let's not forget that we are still burdening staff with our memos in connection with the form-based code and the DGIS. So that is
Well, Tom has gotten us half or 3/4 of the way there already.
Right,
I was
but
intending
also
to
I
get you
need to put a
90%
shout
there.
out to council, to the planning board council, who needs to review that as well.
Yeah, okay, I got it, we got it. So, get it done when you can, no problem. Understood.
But
Yeah,
when do we call for the next meeting?
Brad, is there any time constraints on behalf of your client?
I was just going to say that, Sabrina. Look, if there was a real need, I would push respectfully. Enjoy your vacation. I respect everything you just said. I'm not sitting here tonight saying we have to have it by December 15th. If we could have the hearing, that would be great. That we could advance, and we'll deal with the resolution in January.
Okay.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
So we'll schedule this then for a public hearing. Do we need a motion for that to schedule the public hearing for December 15th?
Yes.
Do we have a motion to support that?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion's carried 5-0. And so we will see you, Brad, on December 15th.
Terrific. Thank
All
you.
right.
And good night.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have minutes.
How many minutes do we have?
We have hours of minutes.
Good, nice to know.
So we have September 22nd. I'm going to suggest that unless we have something that's really substantive, but if you have grammatical changes, I think it's worked pretty well to send those to Felicia and not take the extra time. I think it's more efficient for her as well. Thank you, Felicia, because you're really getting these up to speed here, and we're really in pretty good shape, pretty well caught up. So does anyone have anything that is really substantive that is, just a clear misstatement or something that has to be corrected that we need to hear about?
I don't.
No, I do have comments of things that appear to be not stated correctly, but I don't think that they are anything that needs to be brought to the full board's attention.
Okay. Anyone else?
I have one comment, and it's minor.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll send it to Felicia.
Okay. All right. So the four of us can vote on these minutes because we were here.
We were here. Yep.
We were here. Right. So subject to non-substantive changes, but textual grammatical changes only, is there a motion to adopt the minutes of September 22nd?
Motion.
Okay, thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that is passed 4-0. We have the minutes of October 6th.
I have nothing.
Well, yeah, Felicia, I think I got a double dose of it. This on page 5 of 9, it's like it's starting over again.
Yes. Right.
So
maybe we were just repeating ourselves.
Absolutely.
It just seemed that way, huh?
Word for word.
I think that's called payback, Felicia.
I don't know what that is, but I will look into it.
Yes, make it go away.
It just reprinted. Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
So again, the subject to those non-substantive but grammatical and textual changes, is there a motion to adopt the minutes of October 6, 2020?
Motion.
So moved.
We don't have to do a roll call.
Eldad, give it to Eldad.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, wait, who made the motion? Who seconded?
Eldad made the motion.
And who seconded?
It's kind of a tie.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. And finally, we have the minutes of November 4.
I have a couple grammatical changes, but that's it. So I'll send them in.
Yep. Yep, same here. Anyone else? If not, is there a motion then to approve the minutes of November 4, 2020, subject to, again, non-substantive and just grammatical textual changes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion's carried 4-0. The next item is the 2021 meeting schedule. So Felicia's been kind enough to put together the schedule here. As much as I tried, I couldn't reduce the number of meetings. We're stuck. We have to come here. So to get our full pay here, of course. So any problems, any questions, anyone? Again, we tried to work around certain holidays where it just made some sense to give us a little bit more breather. And we had to work around certain dates, tax day in June, work around the Jewish holidays in September, which is always a challenge for us because we have to kind of find a room, assuming we ever meet together, and the court, et cetera, and with staff and the Zoom meetings covering these. So unless there's any objection, we'll entertain a motion to adopt the schedule for our schedule for next year, for 2021.
So moved.
So moved.
That was Tom. Second? Dick?
Yeah, second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that's carried 4-0. And I think that's it for now. I've been advised that we really can't speak to Tom's memo and the form-based code and the DGIEIs because we haven't noticed it. So we'll just refrain from that and speak on Thursday at our meeting. So we meet again on Thursday at 6:30, I believe it is. Is Nick coming, Jennifer? Or are you're
muted?
I think I think he's planning to come. I'll verify that.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. So we'll meet on Thursday at 6:30 to continue our discussion. Thank you, Tom, for crystallizing some of the things that we've spoken about before. Hopefully that'll make our conversation a little bit more pointed and intelligent, and we can make some real good progress.
Question, Bob?
Sure.
I know I raised this last time, or I asked, but I don't remember kind of where we're at, forget things. First of all, thanks, Tom, for putting that together. Super helpful. This Thursday, we hope to finalize it and issue the memo that will speak to the EIS, correct? And then we also...
I say it hesitantly because one of my thoughts is that it's so, I mean, we've been working on this sort of artificial roadway where we're looking at these two issues and trying to bifurcate them. However, my take on and looking at Tom's notes the other day is it's very difficult in some of these areas to keep them very distinct, and there is really a lot of overlap. So yes, that's the point.
Can I make a suggestion?
Mm-hmm.
I would like to suggest that you defer this conversation to Thursday and think about submitting one memo on both the code and the DGEIS because they are so closely related and your conversations have overlapped. Also, there will be a time where I believe you will have another opportunity to comment on proposed legislation that the town board is considering to adopt. Right. So you'll have another review after this draft has been changed, if you will. So just
are you talking about the final EIS? Are you talking about that stage?
No.
In the seeker process?
No, there's going to be a public hearing on the actual final version of the proposed form-based code. That's a step that still needs to be
after
referred to you.
Finding statement of the DGEIS, the actual seeker review.
Right. So the actual legislation will go through the typical referral process for zoning legislation to your board for comments on the local law.
So
but before we address Sabrina's
question here,
suggestion, I just want to just finish my thought and question. So we had this memo for the EIS, and then we also had a discussion about our comments in general about, like you said, Bob, we bifurcated this discussion, one about the EIS, the other about the proposed zoning change, the legislation, the form-based code. We don't have, I'm just confirming, we don't have, we had that discussion, but we don't have a memo on that yet, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I'm not pushing for one. I just want to make sure.
No, you haven't missed anything yet.
So I understand your point, Sabrina. And I guess we should talk about it Thursday. But I think there is from my perspective, there is a distinction between these two topics. And it's not insignificant. And obviously our two discussions overlap a lot, and that's okay. We are talking at the end of the day about the same thing to an extent, but the EIS is to me is a different discussion than the code itself. And maybe we don't want to have this discussion now, but I see your face. Okay, then we can discuss it on Thursday, and we'll just leave it at that. But
Thursday's meeting will be noticed. It's very important to the public that they be privy to your discussions.
Well, this discussion is about process. It's not about.
Doesn't matter.
It's not about the content.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Really?
No, it should all be held in a public forum where they're properly noticed.
Yeah.
Okay, even process. Okay.
Even process.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so we will discuss it on Thursday.
Yes. Yep.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
All right.
Nope, that's okay.
No, it's okay. So, Kenan, were you keeping the score in terms of the over/under?
No, I
usually hit double figures by the end of the night. So
I lost count at some point.
you lost count. Oh, great. Oh, you're gonna fit in great.
Yeah, you caught on right away.
Yeah, exactly.
Like an old timer.
Is there a motion to close the meeting then?
So moved.
Yes,
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll see you Thursday. Thanks.
Good night.
Thank everybody.
Bye now.
Have a good